Israel has begun combat operations in the central area of the Gaza Strip, and that is home to several large refugee camps. The uptick in attacks on the back of Tel Aviv's latest warning that a long war lies ahead, one that could last for many more months. Now, talks between senior U.S. and Israeli officials suggest plans to transition to a different phase of the war are on the horizon. The White House says this would allow focus to be maximized on high-value Hamas targets. Discussions also touched on steps to improve the humanitarian situation and minimize harm to civilians, as well as securing the release of the remaining hostages and planning for a post-conflict Gaza. Now, on the ground, the Israeli army says it's managed to hit some 200 targets from the air, land and sea within the past 24 hours. In South Gaza, the Israeli Prime Minister has pledged to deepen operations. Airstrikes continue to pummel cities like Khan Yunis and Rafah with a destructive force. Now, hostilities are also on the rise in the West Bank. At least 6 people have been killed following an Israeli raid in the city of Tulkarm. Local authorities say more than 300 Palestinians have died in clashes since the war erupted in October. Trent Murray joins us live from Tel Aviv with more on the situation. Trent, violence appearing to spread within as well as beyond Gaza. Flashpoints also on Israel's border with Lebanon. Bring us up to date on the latest.
Yeah, that's right, Jill. I mean, we're seeing a number of flashpoints now, which is why the Defence Minister here, Yoav Gallant, has been saying in the past 24 hours that Israel is effectively fighting wars now on 7 different fronts. A lot of the focus on Gaza, understandably, but we really do have to keep an eye on the situation in Lebanon. Hezbollah claiming responsibility for 17 rockets which were fired towards Rosh HaNikra, which is a settlement right in the far north of Israel. It's currently evacuated under government orders for safety, but it does just show how dangerous the situation there is becoming. We understand the IDF has launched a number of airstrikes along the southern border of Lebanon, and the IDF is saying now that Hezbollah is putting the entire state of Lebanon at risk. Several journalists on the ground, credible sources too, I should say, have said that the IDF has flown jets over the Lebanese capital Beirut in the past 24 hours in a show of force. We know as well the situation in Syria, where that Damascus airstrike, which killed an Iranian commander, has garnered a furious reaction from Iran. The president there saying Israel will pay a very heavy price. And I should also just mention briefly, the US Navy has said that overnight it shot down 17 drones and ballistic missiles, which were launched by Yemen-based Houthi rebels. So you can see why there is real concern in this region now from diplomats who say this arena of the conflict is growing, and with it, so too is the risk of miscalculation or further escalation.
Absolutely. But in Gaza's south, when you hear that just 8 hospitals are partially functioning, it's hard to imagine how the humanitarian efforts could progress.
Very, very difficult situation on the ground by all accounts. And as you mentioned in your introduction, further airstrikes on Khan Yunis and Rafah. Now, that is really critical because those are the 2 major settlements in the south that the IDF has been telling civilians to evacuate to. We know there's been very heavy fighting in the north and central Gaza, but those evacuation warnings are coming as the UN says, look, if there's going to be strikes in the south as well, then there is effectively nowhere safe for civilians. We understand around 90% of people living in Gaza, there's around 2 million of them, we have to remember, are now effectively displaced. The UN is warning that famine is a risk now for all of the Strip. The IDF says, though, it's going to continue this operation. It's now established operational control largely in the north of Gaza. It's continuing to make its way south under government orders. And the government of Benjamin Netanyahu says it will not stop until Hamas is crushed and the Gaza Strip is demilitarized. Jill.
We appreciate the update. Trent Murray reporting to us from Tel Aviv.